Catherine Harrington slammed a $50,000 check onto the mahogany table, her voice carrying the temperature of January steel. "Take it and disappear. Don't ever come back."
Look at you, wallowing in your own mess.
You did this! Help me!
Oh, I'll help you right off the edge.
Emma a year of security, could resurrect the Ford dying in the parking lot outside this mansion. He didn't blink. He picked up the check, tore it in half. Catherine's mouth opened. Nothing came out. James tore again. 4 pieces, 8, 16. He kept going until $50,000 became confetti, drifting onto Italian marble like snow that would never melt. "I'm not for sale," he said, 5 words delivered like rounds from a pistol. "Your daughter isn't either." Catherine Harrington, the woman who'd fired 37 caregivers in 18 months, who'd destroyed 2 therapists' practices, who'd made a corporate attorney weep in open court, stood frozen like someone had cut her power supply. Nobody in the Harrington empire had ever refused her money. Nobody had ever looked her in the eye like that, like she was the one who needed saving. But what James did next didn't just freeze her. It shattered everything she believed about power, about control, and about her own father who was dying 3 floors above them. 6 weeks earlier, James's phone had buzzed at 4:47 in the morning. He'd already been awake since 3, staring at the ceiling of his 1-bedroom apartment in Norwood, doing arithmetic in his head that never came out right. Rent was $950 due in 6 days. Emma's field trip fee was $75 needed by Friday. The truck needed an oil change he couldn't afford. The refrigerator held 2 eggs, half a loaf of bread, and a jar of peanut butter with maybe 3 sandwiches left in it. His checking account balance was $127. He grabbed the phone before the second ring could wake Emma through the thin wall separating their bedrooms. Patricia Langmore's voice came through crisp despite the hour. "Mr. Cooper, I apologize for calling so early. I'm up. What do you have?" "Something just came in. It's unusual. The client specifically requested someone with no prior connection to their family, no prior employment in their social circle. They want someone completely outside their world." James sat up against the headboard, already knowing that when Patricia used the word unusual, she meant there was a problem nobody else wanted to touch. "What kind of job?" A pause. That pause told James everything. "It's the Harrington family." James stopped breathing for 3 seconds. "Harrington, as in Harrington Industries." "Yes, William Harrington built it from a single hardware store in Cleveland back in '72. It's a $3 billion company now, but the client is technically his daughter, Catherine. She needs a full-time caregiver for her daughter, Sophia. The child is 7. "Why is it unusual?" Another pause, longer this time. "Mr. Cooper, I'm going to be honest with you because I respect your work. You've been the best placement we've had in 3 years. Every family you've worked with has given you perfect marks. That's why I'm calling you at this hour." "Patricia, why is it unusual?" 37. Just a number. But James felt it land like a brick. 37 what? 37 people in 18 months. Nannies, au pairs, behavioral specialists, 1 child psychologist who lasted 11 days. 37 people have walked out, been fired, or simply stopped showing up. James swung his legs out of bed, feet hitting the cold floor. "What's wrong with the kid?" "Nothing is wrong with the kid, Mr. Cooper." Patricia's voice carried a weight that made him listen harder. "Everything wrong is with the mother." James sat there in the dark, thinking about Emma, asleep in the next room, thinking about the bills stacked on the kitchen counter like a house of cards, one breath from collapse, thinking about the last time he'd had to choose between his daughter's dignity and his own. "How much does it pay?" $12,000 a month. James almost dropped the phone. "Say that again." $12,000 per month plus housing on the property if you want it, full benefits, car allowance. Ms. Harrington is very motivated to find someone who will stay. $12,000 a month. That was more than he'd made in the entire last year combined. That was Emma's school fees paid through high school. That was the truck fixed. That was breathing room he hadn't felt since Sarah got sick. "What's the catch, Patricia?" The catch is that Catherine Harrington will try to break you, not because she wants to, but because it's the only thing she knows how to do. And if you walk away like the 37 before you, that little girl will have one more reason to believe nobody stays. James looked at the photograph on his nightstand, barely visible in the pre-dawn dark. Sarah smiling in the kitchen 2 months before the diagnosis. Emma on her lap, both of them covered in flour from making cookies, both of them laughing like the world was something you could trust. "I'll take the interview." At 7:15, James dropped Emma off at the public school 3 blocks from their apartment. She was small for 9, with her mother's dark eyes, serious, watchful, missing nothing. Sarah had been gone 4 years. Cancer, fast and cruel. One day laughing in the kitchen, the next in a hospital bed, and 6 weeks later, James was standing in a cemetery holding a 5-year-old's hand, trying to explain something he didn't understand himself. "Dad," Emma said as she unbuckled her seatbelt, "you look worried." "I'm not worried. You're doing the thing with your jaw." He forced himself to relax. "I have a job interview today. Big one." "How big?" "Could change things for us, Em." She looked at him with those eyes, Sarah's eyes. "You'll get it. You always figure it out." She kissed his cheek and jumped out of the truck. James watched her disappear through the school doors, waited a full minute gripping the steering wheel, telling himself this time would be different. This time the money would be enough. This time he wouldn't have to choose between keeping his daughter fed and keeping his self-respect. He drove across town to Indian Hill, where the houses stopped being houses and became estates. The Harrington property sat behind gates that probably cost more than James's entire apartment building. A security guard checked his ID, made a phone call, waited, made another call, waited again, then waved him through like he was entering a military installation. James parked his battered Ford pickup between a black Bentley and a white Range Rover. He didn't care. He'd stopped being embarrassed about money a long time ago. Poverty wasn't a character flaw. He'd learned that the hard way, watching Sarah's medical bills pile up while insurance companies found creative ways to deny coverage. The front door opened before he could knock. A woman in a gray suit looked him up and down with the efficiency of an X-ray machine. "James Cooper." "Yes, ma'am." "Follow me. Ms. Harrington is in the east sitting room." They walked through hallways that seemed to go on forever, past rooms James didn't bother looking into. He wasn't here to be impressed. He was here to work. The woman in gray stopped at a set of double doors, knocked once, opened them without waiting for a response. "Victoria Harrington." Catherine James corrected himself, stood by the window with her back to him. She didn't turn around. "Sit down." James sat. Catherine turned. She was younger than he'd expected. Mid-30s, sharp features, blonde hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She wore a black blazer, black pants, heels that could puncture concrete. But it was her eyes that hit him. Cold. Not angry cold. Like someone had reached inside her a long time ago and switched something off. She looked at the folder on the table between them. His file. James Allen Cooper, 42 years old, widower, 1 daughter, age 9. Former high school football coach, became a licensed child care provider 3 years ago. 6 placements, all successful. No complaints, no incidents. That's right. You coached football. Used to. Why'd you stop? My wife got sick. Coaching doesn't pay enough to cover what we needed. Catherine's expression didn't change. And child care does. Child care lets me set my own hours. Be there for my daughter. And yes, it pays better than you'd think when you're good at it. Are you good at it? I'm here, aren't I? Patricia doesn't send people to you unless they're the best she has. Something flickered in Catherine's eyes. Not warmth, recognition, like she'd identified something she hadn't expected to find. "Mr. Cooper, let me be very clear about what this position requires. My daughter Sophia is 7 years old. She is intelligent, perceptive, and she does not respond to conventional childcare approaches. She has been assessed by 4 different psychologists. None of them agree on anything except that she is not the problem." "Then what is the problem?" Catherine stared at him. "Excuse me. You said she's not the problem. So what is 37 people don't walk away from a 7-year-old for no reason? The room went very still. James could feel the woman in gray behind him tense up. He'd crossed a line. He knew it. He didn't care. Catherine set her jaw. The problem, Mr. Cooper, is that most people are weak. They come in here with their credentials and their theories and their soft voices, and the moment things get difficult, they crumble. I need someone who won't crumble. James looked her dead in the eye. I buried my wife and raised my daughter alone. I don't crumble. Catherine studied him for a long moment. Then she picked up the phone on the table. Bring Sophia in. The door opened 2 minutes later. James expected a lot of things. A screaming child, a defiant child, a child who threw things or bit or cursed. He'd seen all of it in his years working with families. What walked in was none of those things. Sophia Harrington was small, pale, with dark hair that fell past her shoulders. She walked in slowly, eyes on the floor, hands clasped in front of her. She moved like someone who'd learned very early that the less space you took up, the safer you were. James felt something crack in his chest. He knew that walk. Emma had walked like that for the first year after Sarah died. Sophia, Catherine said, her voice carrying no warmth but no harshness either, just a flat efficiency. This is Mr. Cooper. He's going to be taking care of you. Sophia didn't look up. For how long? The question hit the room like a brick through glass. Catherine's jaw tightened. For as long as necessary. They all leave, Sophia said quietly, voice barely above a whisper. Can I go back to my room? James leaned forward slightly, not towering over her, not invading her space, just bringing himself closer to her level. Sophia, it's okay. Both Catherine and Sophia looked at him. He ignored Catherine entirely, focused on the child. Sophia, my name's James. You don't have to like me. You don't have to talk to me, but I want you to know something. He waited until her eyes lifted just barely. Dark, brown, enormous, full of something that made James want to put his fist through a wall, because a 7-year-old should never have that much resignation in her eyes. I'm not going anywhere. Sophia's eyes finally met his, really met his, searching his face for the lie, for the crack, for the inevitable betrayal. That's what they all say, she whispered. I know, and I know you don't believe me. That's okay. I'll just have to prove it. Sophia stared at him for 3 full seconds. Then she turned and walked out of the room without another word. Not running, not slamming, just closing herself away, quiet as a ghost. Catherine waited until the door clicked shut. Well, she didn't scream at you. That's actually progress. James kept his voice level. She doesn't scream because she's given up. That's not progress. That's worse. Catherine's eyes narrowed. I didn't hire you for your psychological analysis, Mr. Cooper. You haven't hired me at all yet. Yes, I have. You start Monday 6 a.m. Don't be late. James sat in his truck for 10 minutes before driving away. He called Patricia. What the hell is going on in that house? Patricia sighed. That kid isn't difficult, James. That kid is drowning. There's a difference. What happened to her? Where's the father? There is no father. Catherine used a donor. She wanted a child on her own terms. Everything in Catherine's life is on her own terms. And William Harrington, the grandfather. William is complicated. He built that empire from nothing, started with one hardware store in Cleveland in '72, turned it into what it is today. He's old school James, hard. Catherine is his only child. From what I understand, their relationship is a war zone. Does he see Sophia? Rarely. Catherine controls access to Sophia like it's a government clearance. William has tried. Lawyers have been involved. It's a mess. James stared at the Harrington gate in his rearview mirror. How much is the position paying again? $12,000 a month plus housing if you wanted full benefits, car allowance. It was more money than James had made in the last year combined. It would solve everything. The rent, Emma's school, the truck, everything. What's the catch, Patricia? The catch is that Catherine Harrington will try to break you. Not because she wants to, because it's the only thing she knows how to do. James started Monday. He was there at 5:45 a.m. The house was already alive, staff moving through hallways, someone in the kitchen preparing breakfast, the woman in gray coordinating schedules on her phone. Catherine was leaving as James arrived. She had a briefcase in one hand, phone in the other. Sophia's schedule is on the counter. She has tutoring at 9, piano at 11, advanced math at 1, and writing at 3. Do not deviate from the schedule. Good morning to you too, James said. Catherine stopped. She turned and looked at him like he'd just spoken in a foreign language. Mr. Cooper, I'm not paying you $12,000 a month for pleasantries. I'm paying you to follow instructions. And I'll follow your instructions. But I'm also going to say good morning to you because that's what normal people do. Catherine's mouth opened, then closed. Then she walked out the front door without another word. James watched her go. Then he turned to the woman in gray who was staring at him with wide eyes. What's your name? Helen. Helen, where's Sophia? Her room. Second floor, third door on the left. She won't come out until you go get her. She never does. James climbed the stairs. He found the door. White, no decorations, no nameplate, nothing. He knocked. Silence. Sophia, it's James. Your mom left. It's just you and me today. More silence. I'm not going to come in unless you want me to, but I want you to know I brought something. He waited. 20 seconds. 30. Then so quiet he almost missed it. What did you bring? James smiled. Pancake mix, the real kind. Not the fancy stuff, the kind that comes in a box and tastes like Saturday morning. Nothing for 10 seconds. Then the door cracked open. One dark eye peered out. We have a chef, Sophia said. I know, but I bet your chef doesn't make pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. The eye blinked. Dinosaurs aren't real. The pancakes are. Want to find out? The door opened another inch. Sophia's whole face appeared now. She was wearing pajamas with little stars on them. She looked impossibly small. My mom says I'm supposed to have a nutritionally balanced breakfast, oatmeal with flaxseed and fresh fruit. Your mom's not here, and dinosaurs are a food group. Something happened then that James would later describe as the single most important moment of the entire story. Sophia's mouth twitched. Not a smile, not yet, but the ghost of one, the shadow of a smile that had been buried so deep, even she'd forgotten it was there. Okay, she said, but only if you make a T-Rex. They went to the kitchen. The chef, a tall, thin man named August, watched in horror as James pulled out a box of Aunt Jemima and started mixing batter. Sir, August said, his voice pained, I have prepared a breakfast of take the morning off, August. But Miss Harrington's instructions? I'll handle Miss Harrington. August looked at Sophia. Sophia looked at James. Then she climbed onto a stool at the kitchen island, and August would later tell Helen that was the first time the child had ever sat in the kitchen voluntarily. James made pancakes. He made a T-Rex. It looked terrible, lopsided, one arm bigger than the other, the tail falling apart. That's the worst dinosaur I've ever seen, Sophia said. It's a special species, the Lopsidosaurus. That's not a real dinosaur. Neither is this pancake. Eat up. Sophia ate the entire thing. Then she ate another one. Then she drank a glass of milk, regular milk, not the organic almond, whatever that was in the refrigerator. Mr. James? Just James. James, are you really not going to leave? He put down the spatula. He looked at her directly. Sophia, I've got a daughter. Her name's Emma. She's 9. 4 years ago her mom died. Sophia's eyes went wide. I know what it feels like to lose people. I know what it feels like to be scared that everyone else will leave too. And I can't promise you that nobody will ever leave because that's the truth about life, people leave. But I can promise you this, I will be here every single day until you believe I'll be here tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. I will be here until you stop having to wonder if I'll be here. Tears ran down Sophia's face. Not loud, dramatic crying. Silent tears that roll down without a sound. The kind of crying you learn when you figure out that making noise only makes things worse. But then she wiped her eyes, looked at James, and did something that he would remember for the rest of his life. She smiled. A small smile, trembling shy. But a smile. Wednesday, the phone rang. Catherine, her voice carrying an edge sharp enough to cut. "What did you do with my daughter's piano lesson?" "I took Sophia to the backyard. She has piano at 11. She said she hates piano. She doesn't get to hate piano. Piano develops discipline and cognitive. She's 7. She gets to hate whatever she wants." A sharp intake of breath on the other end. "Mr. Cooper." "You're pushing her too fast, Ms. Harrington. She needs to be a kid." "Don't tell me how to raise my child." The line went dead. Thursday. Catherine came home in person. She walked into the playroom where James and Sophia were building a fort out of couch cushions and stopped cold. Sophia froze. The light that had been slowly building in her eyes all week flickered out like someone had blown out a candle. "What is this?" Catherine asked, her voice carrying that dangerous quiet that meant she was 2 seconds from detonating. "Fort Cooper," James said calmly. "Sophia designed it. Load-bearing walls and everything. This room is for supervised educational activity. Building a fort is educational. Architecture, engineering, spatial reasoning." "Mr. Cooper," Catherine's voice dropped to something that could strip paint. "My daughter's development is not a joke to me. It's not a joke to me either. That's why I'm building a fort with her instead of forcing her through another schedule that makes her miserable." Catherine's face went white. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "You have no idea. No idea what I've sacrificed to give her every advantage." James met her eyes without flinching. "I know exactly what you've sacrificed. Her." The room went dead silent. Sophia was pressed against the cushions, making herself as small as possible. James saw it and hated himself for letting it go this far in front of her. Catherine's hands were shaking. She clenched them tighter. For a moment James thought she was going to fire him on the spot. She had every right to. He'd overstepped. He'd said the one thing no one was supposed to say. But Catherine didn't fire him. She didn't say anything. She turned around and walked out. The front door slammed so hard the windows rattled. Sophia started crying. Not loud, dramatic crying. Silent tears rolling down her cheeks without a sound, the kind of crying you learn when you figure out that making noise only makes things worse. James sat down next to her. He didn't touch her. He didn't tell her it was okay, because it wasn't okay. "I'm sorry, that was my fault. I shouldn't have said that in front of you." Sophia wiped her eyes. "Is she going to send you away?" "I don't know." "She always sends them away." "I told you, Sophia, I'm not going anywhere." Sophia looked at the ruined fort. Then she picked up a cushion and put it back in place. Then another one. Rebuilding. James picked one up too. They rebuilt the fort together, and neither of them said another word for an hour. Friday night, James got a call from a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Cooper, this is William Harrington." James sat up straight in his apartment, Emma asleep in the next room. "Mr. Harrington, I understand you've been causing quite a stir in my daughter's household." "I suppose that depends on your definition of a stir." A low chuckle. "Helen tells me Sophia ate pancakes, real pancakes, and laughed 4 times. 3 times, actually, but who's counting?" "I am," William said. His voice changed heavier, older, carrying something that sounded like decades of regret. "Mr. Cooper, my granddaughter has not laughed in that house in over a year. I know because I ask Helen every week." James was quiet. "I also understand my daughter is not making your job easy. Your daughter is making my job nearly impossible." "Yes, she's good at that. Unfortunately, she learned it from me." William paused. "Mr. Cooper, I'm going to tell you something that no one outside this family knows. And I'm telling you because Helen says you might be the first person in a very long time who actually gives a damn about that little girl." "I'm listening." "Catherine was not always like this. She was a bright, loving child. Her mother, my wife Eleanor, died when Catherine was 6. I didn't handle it well. I buried myself in work. I built an empire and lost my daughter in the process. By the time I realized what I'd done, Catherine had built walls so high that God himself couldn't climb over them. James closed his eyes. The parallels hit him like a freight train. A child who lost a parent too young. A remaining parent who didn't know how to cope. Walls built out of grief turning into prisons. "She's doing to Sophia what I did to her," William said, "and she can't see it. That's the cruelest part. She genuinely believes she's protecting that child." "She's going to fire me, Mr. Harrington." "No, she won't." "How do you know?" "Because I've been watching my daughter push people away for 30 years, and not once, not a single time has anyone pushed back the way you did. Helen told me what you said to her, about what she sacrificed." William's voice cracked slightly. "Mr. Cooper, I am an old man. I'm 78 years old. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and I would give every penny of it to see my daughter whole again, to see my granddaughter smile without being afraid." James gripped the phone. "What are you asking me to do?" "I'm asking you to not give up. No matter what Catherine does, no matter what she says, don't give up on them." "That's a big ask for $12,000 a month. Name your price." "It's not about money, Mr. Harrington." "I know it's not. That's why I'm asking you." There was a pause, and then William's voice turned grave. "But there's something you need to know. Catherine is filing for a restraining order against me. She wants me legally barred from the property from Sophia, from any contact." "Why now? What changed?" "I think she knows I called you. I think she figured out that someone told you about Eleanor, about her mother. And Catherine has always treated information about her childhood like classified intelligence. If she thinks I'm going behind her back using you as some kind of agent, I'm not your agent, Mr. Harrington. I told you that." "I know you're not, but Catherine doesn't see it that way. In her mind, everyone has an agenda. Everyone is trying to get something. The idea that someone might simply care, she can't compute it. She never could." James rubbed his temple. "If she finds out you and I have been talking, she'll fire me, and this time no amount of torn checks is going to stop her." "I know. That's why I'm calling to tell you this is our last conversation. I won't call again. I won't contact Helen. I'm going to step back completely." "Mr. Harrington, no. Listen to me. I have spent 30 years trying to fix what I broke with my daughter. Every attempt has made it worse. Every lawyer, every phone call, every grand gesture, it all just confirms what she already believes, that I'm trying to control her, that I want something from her." The old man's voice broke. "I don't want anything from her, Mr. Cooper. I just want her to be okay. And for the first time in 30 years, someone is in that house who might actually make that happen. I'm not going to ruin it by being selfish. You're her father. I'm a stranger who shares her DNA. There's a difference. I gave up the right to call myself her father a long time ago." William took a breath. "Take care of them. Both of them. That's all I'll ever ask." The line went dead. James stared at his phone. The weight of what he'd walked into was becoming clearer every day. This wasn't a job. This was a family torn into pieces so small you needed a microscope to find them. Monday morning, Catherine was waiting for him at the front door. She was holding a manila envelope. "We need to talk." James followed her inside. They stood in the foyer. Catherine handed him the envelope. "What's this?" "A revised contract. New terms. Read it." James opened it. The first page was a non-disclosure agreement. The second was a list of rules that read like something from a military tribunal. No contact with William Harrington. No discussion of family history with Sophia. No deviation from the approved schedule without written authorization. No communication with any member of the Harrington family outside of Catherine herself. Violation of any clause would result in immediate termination and legal action. James read every word. Then he looked at Catherine. "You're scared." "I'm protecting my daughter." "From what?" "From her grandfather. From me. From a sandwich." Catherine's jaw tightened. "My father is a manipulative man who has spent my entire life trying to control every aspect of..." Your father is a 78-year-old man who asks Helen every week if his granddaughter laughed. Catherine went pale. He talks to Helen. He talked to Helen, past tense. He called me this weekend to tell me he's stepping back completely. No more calls, no more contact. He's done. Good. It's not good, Ms. Harrington. It's an old man giving up because every time he reaches out to his daughter, she builds the wall higher. Catherine snatched the envelope back. You didn't sign it. No. Then you're in breach of your original contract, which requires compliance with all revisions. Fire me then. Catherine stared at him. What? You heard me. Fire me right now. Call Patricia. Tell her it didn't work out. Write another check. Go ahead. You've done it 37 times. What's one more? This is not, you can't just, but you should know something first before you do it. Sophia sat at the kitchen island yesterday and told me that making you that sandwich was the best thing she's done in her whole life. Those were her exact words. 7 years old and bringing her mother a sandwich is the peak of her existence. That's what you've given her, Ms. Harrington. A life so empty that a sandwich feels like a miracle. Catherine's face crumbled. It happened fast, like a building collapsing. 1 second the structure was there, and the next it was falling, everything coming down at once. Stop it, she gasped. Stop what? Stop doing this to me. Making me feel... The words tore out of her like they'd been locked in a cage for 30 years. I spent my entire life learning how not to feel. And you walk in here with your pancakes and your promises and your stupid torn-up check and you're ruining everything. I had it under control. Everything was under control. Nothing was under control. Everything was just numb. And numb isn't the same as control, Ms. Harrington. Numb is just a slower way of dying. She backed against the wall. Her breathing was ragged. The manila envelope fell from her hands and scattered across the floor. My mother died when I was 6, she said, and her voice sounded like a child's. Not a CEO's, not a billionaire's daughter's, a child's. And my father looked at me like I was a reminder of everything he'd lost. So I learned to disappear. I learned to be perfect. I learned to need nothing from anyone ever. And when I had Sophia, I swore she would never feel what I felt. She would never be helpless. She would never be weak. Being loved isn't weak, Ms. Harrington. Being loved is the most dangerous thing in the world because it can be taken away. She snapped her fingers. Just like that. 1 phone call, 1 diagnosis. One morning you wake up and the person who was supposed to be there forever is gone. And you're 6 years old standing in a kitchen waiting for someone who is never coming home. James took a step toward her. I know. You don't know. My wife died 4 years ago. My daughter was 5. I stood in that kitchen. I waited for someone who wasn't coming home. I know, Ms. Harrington. Believe me, I know. Catherine looked at him, really looked at him. Not with cold eyes, not with armor, not with 30 years of defense mechanisms and control strategies and emotional fortification. She looked at him the way a drowning person looks at a hand reaching into the water. How did you survive it? She whispered. I let someone help me. Catherine slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, the most powerful woman James had ever met, sitting on the marble floor of her own foyer, surrounded by the scattered pages of a contract designed to keep the entire world at arm's length. James sat down across from her. 2 adults sitting on the floor of a mansion at 7 in the morning, both of them broken in the same places, both of them held together by the same stubborn refusal to let it beat them. I don't know how to do this, Catherine said. Any of it. Being a mother, being a person, feeling things without being destroyed by them. Nobody knows how to do it. We all just show up and try not to mess it up too badly. I've messed it up, with Sophia, with my father, with everything. Yeah, you have. Catherine looked at him, startled by the honesty. But that's the thing about messing up, James said. You get to try again. Tomorrow morning and the morning after that. You just keep showing up. Catherine wiped her face with the back of her hand. Mascara smeared across her wrist. She looked at it like she'd never seen her own tears before. Sophia likes the dinosaur pancakes, she said quietly. They're terrible. She says the Triceratops was the worst one. She's not wrong. Catherine almost smiled. Not quite, but closer than James had ever seen. I'm not signing that contract, he said. I know. And I'm not going to stop telling you the truth. I know that too. And tomorrow morning I'm making pancakes. If you want to come down and eat with your daughter, the kitchen's open at 6:30. Catherine pressed her lips together. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. She picked herself up off the floor, gathered the scattered pages of the contract, and walked to her office without another word. James let himself out and drove home. When he picked up Emma from school that afternoon, she took one look at his face. Hard day. Complicated day. Good complicated or bad complicated. James thought about Catherine sitting on the floor, about Sophia holding on like he was the only solid thing in a world that had never stopped shaking, about William Harrington hanging up the phone for the last time, about a 7-year-old girl making a sandwich for a mother who'd forgotten how to be one. I don't know yet, Em. Ask me tomorrow. At 6:32 the next morning, James was in the Harrington kitchen making pancake batter when he heard footsteps. Not Sophia's. Sophia's footsteps were light, hesitant, like a ghost testing whether the ground would hold. These were different, slower, deliberate, like every step was a decision. Catherine appeared in the kitchen doorway. She was wearing jeans and a sweater. No blazer, no heels, no armor. Her hair was down, falling around her shoulders. She looked 10 years younger and 10 years more terrified. I don't know what kind of pancakes I like, she said. I haven't had pancakes since I was 5. James poured batter onto the griddle. Then I guess we'll have to figure it out. Catherine sat down at the kitchen island, the same stool Sophia always used. She folded her hands in her lap and stared at the counter like it was the most foreign landscape she'd ever encountered. 5 minutes later, Sophia came padding down the stairs. She stopped at the kitchen entrance. Her eyes went to James, then to Catherine, then back to James. Her face carried the expression of a child who has just witnessed something impossible, something she'd stopped believing could ever happen. Mom. Catherine's voice was barely a whisper. Good morning, sweetheart. Sophia didn't move. She stood there frozen, like if she took a step the whole thing would shatter and she'd wake up. James put a plate of pancakes on the counter. A lopsided dinosaur slightly burned on one side. He didn't say anything. He just stepped back and let the moment belong to them. Sophia walked to the island. She climbed onto the stool next to Catherine. Their shoulders were almost touching. Almost. James makes terrible pancakes, Sophia said. I heard, Catherine said. You should try the Triceratops. It's the worst one. Then that's the one I want. James made a Triceratops. It looked like a pancake that had been in a car accident. He put it on Catherine's plate. Catherine picked up a fork. Her hand was shaking. She cut a piece, put it in her mouth, and chewed. That's awful, she said. Told you, Sophia said. And then something happened that James would carry with him for the rest of his life. Catherine laughed. Not a polite laugh, not a controlled laugh, not the calculated response of a woman who'd spent decades performing every human interaction. A real laugh, messy and surprised and almost painful, like a muscle being used for the first time in years. Sophia stared at her mother. Then she started laughing too, and James turned to the griddle so neither of them would see that the man who never crumbled was falling apart at the seams. Breakfast became a ritual. Every morning at 6:30, James made pancakes. Every morning Sophia came down in her star pajamas. And every morning Catherine sat at the island in jeans and a sweater, eating terrible dinosaur shapes and pretending she wasn't terrified. It lasted 9 days. On the 10th day, Catherine came down in her blazer. Her hair was pulled back, her heels were on. She poured coffee, checked her phone, and her voice carried that familiar edge when she spoke. Sophia has a new tutor starting today, Dr. Patel. She specializes in accelerated learning for gifted children. She'll be here at 8. Sophia's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. She looked at James. James kept his face neutral. What happened to the regular schedule? I've revised it. Sophia is behind in 3 subject areas. Dr. Patel will address the gaps. She's 7, Catherine. She's not behind in anything. She's behind where she should be. I've reviewed the benchmarks. Whose benchmarks? Catherine's jaw tightened. The armor was back. All of it. Every plate, every rivet locked into place like the last 9 mornings had never happened. This isn't a discussion, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Cooper, not James. They were back to that. Sophia slid off her stool quietly the way she always did when things got tense, shrinking, disappearing, making herself small enough to slip through the cracks. Sophia, finish your breakfast. I'm not hungry. You need to eat before Dr. Patel arrives. I said I'm not hungry. Sophia's voice was flat, dead. The same voice she'd used the first day James met her. All the brightness from the past 2 weeks gone like someone had flipped a switch. Catherine stiffened. Sophia Ann Harrington, sit down and eat your breakfast. Let her go, James said. Excuse me. She's not hungry. Forcing her to eat isn't going to help anyone. Catherine turned on him with a look that could have stripped paint. Do not tell me how to parent my child. Then stop parenting her like she's a project with a deadline. Sophia was already gone. James heard her footsteps on the stairs, quick and light, and then the distant sound of her bedroom door closing, not slamming. Sophia never slammed. She just closed herself away, quiet as a ghost. Catherine grabbed her briefcase. Dr. Patel will be here at 8. Make sure Sophia is ready. She walked out. The front door closed. Not a slam either. Controlled. Everything Catherine did was controlled, even her exits. James stood in the kitchen alone, surrounded by cold pancakes and the wreckage of 9 good mornings. He went upstairs, knocked on Sophia's door. Go away. It's me. I know. Go away. James sat down on the floor outside her door. He didn't say anything. He just sat there. 3 minutes passed. 5. 7. Are you still there? Sophia's voice came through the door, muffled. Yep. Why? Because sitting outside your door is better than sitting downstairs with a bunch of cold pancakes. Silence. Then, she's never going to change, is she? It wasn't a question. It was a statement delivered with the certainty of a child who had been through this cycle before. Hope retreat. Hope retreat. The cruelest pattern there is. James leaned his head against the wall. Sophia, can I tell you something about people? I guess. Changing is the hardest thing a person can do. It's harder than climbing a mountain. It's harder than running a marathon. Because when you change, you have to look at all the stuff you've been hiding from. And that stuff is ugly and it hurts. And most people would rather do anything than face it. So she's never going to change. I didn't say that. I said it's hard. Hard doesn't mean impossible. It just means it takes time. And setbacks. Lots of setbacks. How many setbacks? As many as it takes. The door cracked open. Sophia's face appeared. Her eyes were red but dry. She'd trained herself not to cry. That broke James more than the tears would have. I don't want to see Dr. Patel. I know. I don't want to do accelerated learning. I want to draw and make pancakes and build forts. I know that too. Can you make her understand that? James looked at this 7-year-old girl who carried more emotional weight than most adults he'd ever met. I'm going to try, Sophia. That's the best I can give you. Trying. Trying isn't the same as doing. No, but it's where doing starts. Dr. Patel arrived at 8 sharp. She was a small woman with kind eyes and a briefcase full of assessment materials. James could tell immediately that she was good at her job and genuinely cared about children. That almost made it worse. The problem wasn't Dr. Patel. The problem was that Catherine was stacking Sophia's life so full of improvement that there was no room left for the child to breathe. James brought Sophia down. She sat across from Dr. Patel at the dining room table with the posture of a prisoner being processed. Hello, Sophia. I'm Dr. Patel. I'm going to be working with you on some really fun learning activities. Sophia didn't respond. Can you tell me what subjects you enjoy? Nothing. Dr. Patel looked at James. James shook his head slightly. Not now. Don't push. That's okay. We don't have to talk about school. What do you like to do for fun? I draw, Sophia said barely above a whisper. Oh, wonderful. What do you draw? Do dinosaurs mostly? And pancakes. Dr. Patel smiled. Those are unique subjects. I'd love to see your drawings sometime. Sophia glanced at James. He nodded. She looked back at Dr. Patel. Okay. They got through the session. Dr. Patel was patient and flexible. By the end, Sophia was at least responding in full sentences. After Dr. Patel left, she pulled James aside. That child is not behind in anything. She tested in the 97th percentile across the board. Her reading comprehension is at a 5th grade level. She's extraordinary. I know. Then why am I here? Because her mother needs to feel like she's doing something, controlling something. It's the only way she knows how to love. Dr. Patel looked at him for a long time. You're not a typical caretaker, are you? I'm not a typical anything. Keep doing what you're doing, Mr. Cooper. Whatever it is, that child is starving, and it's not for education. That evening, James called Patricia. I need a favor. The last time you said that, I sent you to the Harringtons. What now? I need you to find out what happened to Catherine's mother. Not the public version. The real version. Patricia was quiet. Why? Because there's something Catherine is carrying that goes beyond grief. The way she reacts, the way she controls everything, the way she physically cannot allow herself to be vulnerable for more than a few days before slamming the door shut. That's not just a woman who lost her mother. That's a woman who experienced something specific, something she's never dealt with. James, I'm a staffing agent, not a private investigator. You know people. You've worked with the Harringtons for years. Someone knows something. Patricia sighed. There is one person, Catherine's mother's sister, Eleanor's twin. Her name is Margaret Porter. She lives in Athens, Ohio, small town about 3 hours from Cincinnati, has a little farm. She and Catherine haven't spoken in over 20 years. Why not? I don't know the details. But Margaret reached out to our agency once about 5 years ago. She wanted to know if Sophia was okay. She'd heard about the revolving door of caretakers. She was worried. Give me her number, Patricia. If Catherine finds out, I know. Give me her number anyway. He called Margaret that night after Emma was asleep. Hello? The voice was older, warm, cautious. Miss Porter, my name is James Cooper. I'm the caregiver for your great-niece Sophia. A sharp intake of breath. Is she all right? Is Sophia all right? She's okay. She's doing better, actually. But I'm calling about Catherine. Silence. Miss Porter. Margaret. Call me Margaret. Another pause. You're calling because you want to understand her. Yes. Margaret laughed softly. It sounded like Eleanor must have sounded, or at least like the echo of a woman James had never met. Most people don't bother trying to understand Catherine. They just endure her or run from her. I'm not most people. No, I imagine you're not. Patricia told me about you once. Said you were different. Margaret, what happened to Catherine? The line was quiet for so long James thought he'd lost the connection. Eleanor didn't just die, Margaret said finally. She died in the house, in front of Catherine. James closed his eyes. It was a brain aneurysm. Instant. One moment Eleanor was standing in the kitchen making dinner, and the next she was on the floor. Catherine was sitting at the kitchen table doing a coloring book. She watched her mother collapse. She ran to her. She shook her. She screamed for help. But William was at work and the housekeeper had gone home early. Margaret's voice trembled now. How long was she alone with her? James asked, though he already knew. He knew from Margaret's voice, from the way she paused. 45 minutes. The words hung in the air like lead. A 6-year-old girl alone with her dead mother on the kitchen floor for 45 minutes until William came home. James pressed his fist against his forehead. When William found them, Catherine was sitting on the floor next to Eleanor holding her hand. She wasn't crying. She wasn't screaming. She was just sitting there perfectly still holding her mother's hand. And William told me later, he told me this at the funeral, and I have never forgotten it. He said that when he walked in, Catherine looked up at him and said, calm as anything, "I tried to wake her up, but she won't wake up." 6 years old. "She shut down," James said. "She shut down and she has never turned back on." Not fully. William didn't know how to handle it. He was devastated, and he dealt with his devastation the way men of his generation dealt with everything. He worked. He sent Catherine to boarding school when she was 8. She excelled. Of course she excelled at everything because excelling was the only way to feel anything resembling control. Margaret paused. And me, I tried. When Catherine was 12, I asked William to let her spend summers with me. He agreed. She came to Athens 3 summers, stayed at my farm. And for a while I thought maybe I could reach her. She was so bright, James, so funny. When she let her guard down, she used to make up stories about the animals on my farm. She'd give them names and personalities and whole life histories. What went wrong? The last summer she was 14. I found her diary. I shouldn't have read it, but I was worried about her. She was having nightmares every night. She'd wake up screaming, then pretend it hadn't happened. What was in the diary? Pages and pages of the same sentence over and over. I should have saved her. I should have saved her. I should have saved her. Hundreds of times in perfect handwriting. James felt sick. I confronted her about it. I told her it wasn't her fault that she was 6 years old, that there was nothing she could have done. And she looked at me, this 14-year-old girl, and she said, "If I had been smarter, I would have known to call 911. If I had been better, I would have known what to do." And I said, "Catherine, you were a child." And she said, "I will never be that helpless again." "And that's why she controls everything," James whispered. "That's why she controls everything. Every schedule, every outcome, every person who comes near her daughter. Because in Catherine's mind, if she controls everything, nothing bad can happen. No one will die on the kitchen floor while she sits there helpless, unable to do anything." James sat in the dark for a long time after the call ended. Everything made sense now. The schedules, the 37 caregivers, the constant surveillance, the inability to let Sophia just be a child. Because in Catherine's mind, if she controlled everything, nothing bad could happen. No one would die on the kitchen floor while she sat there helpless, unable to do anything. The next morning, Catherine was standing in the kitchen at 6 a.m. holding a piece of paper in both hands. Her thumbs were trembling. It was a drawing. Crayon on construction paper, 3 stick figures, one tall with yellow hair and a smile, one small with dark hair, one medium height with brown hair. Underneath, in careful 7-year-old handwriting, "My family." "She left this on my desk," Catherine said. Her voice was hollow. "She must have put it there last night after I went to sleep." James looked at the drawing. 3 figures. Sophia had drawn Catherine, James, and herself. A family. "She drew you with a smile." Catherine touched the yellow-haired figure with her fingertip. "I don't smile." "She drew what she hopes for." Catherine set the drawing down carefully like it was made of glass. She turned to James, and he saw something in her eyes he hadn't seen before. Not the crack from the foyer, not the brief thaw of the pancake mornings. Something deeper, something that looked like the beginning of surrender, not to James, not to anyone, but to the truth she'd been running from for 29 years. "I was in the kitchen when my mother died." James didn't move, didn't react. He let the words exist in the air between them without rushing to fill the silence. "I was coloring. She was making chicken soup, and then she made a sound, this small sound like a sigh, and she was on the floor. And I thought she was playing. For a few seconds I actually thought she was playing a game. I laughed. I said, 'Mommy, get up.' And she didn't get up." Catherine's voice was steady, the practiced steadiness of someone who had rehearsed these words in her own mind 10,000 times, but never spoken them aloud. "I sat with her for 45 minutes. I held her hand. It got cold. Hands aren't supposed to get cold like that. I didn't know that then. I just thought she was cold. So I got a blanket from the couch and put it over her, and I sat back down and held her hand through the blanket. Catherine. And when my father came home, I told him she wouldn't wake up, and he screamed. He fell on his knees, and he screamed. And it was the most terrifying sound I had ever heard. And then the house was full of people, paramedics and neighbors and someone from his office, and everyone was crying and shouting, and no one looked at me. No one talked to me. No one told me what was happening. They just took her away. And the kitchen was empty, and the soup was still on the stove. She stopped. Her hands were flat on the counter, pressing down hard like she was trying to anchor herself to something solid. I have never told anyone that. Not a therapist, not my father, not anyone. Why are you telling me? Catherine looked at Sophia's drawing, the 3 stick figures, the word family. Because my daughter drew me with a smile, and I don't know how to become the person in that picture. But I think if I don't try, I'm going to lose her the same way my father lost me. And I cannot. Her voice broke. The first real break. Not a crack, not a fracture, but a full collapse of the wall she'd spent a lifetime building. I cannot let that happen to her. I would rather die than let that happen to her. James reached across the counter and put his hand over hers. She flinched. He didn't pull away. He just held it there, steady and warm, and waited. You're not going to lose her. You know why? Catherine looked at his hand on hers. Because you're standing in this kitchen at 6:30 in the morning telling me the worst thing that ever happened to you. That takes more courage than anything I've ever seen. And a woman with that kind of courage doesn't lose. She fights. Catherine stared at his hand on hers. She didn't pull away. I don't know how to fight for this. I know how to fight in boardrooms. I know how to fight lawyers and competitors and anyone who tries to take what's mine. But I don't know how to fight for my daughter's heart. I don't know how to fight for something I can't control. That's the whole point, Catherine. You can't control it. Love isn't a contract. It's not a schedule. You can't optimize it or benchmark it. You just have to show up and be there and let it be messy and imperfect and terrifying. Terrifying. The most terrifying thing in the world. More terrifying than sitting on a kitchen floor holding your mother's hand. Different kind of terrifying. But yeah, because this time you're choosing it. You're walking into it with your eyes open. Catherine was quiet for a long time. Then she pulled her hand away from his. Gently. Not a rejection, just a woman who needed to stand on her own 2 feet for the next thing she was going to say. Cancel Dr. Patel. What? Cancel the accelerated learning program. Cancel all of it. The advanced math, the writing lessons, the piano. Catherine, you don't have to cancel everything. Some structure is, I want to start over from scratch. I want to ask my daughter what she wants. I've never done that, James. In 7 years, I have never once asked Sophia what she wants. I've told her. I've decided for her. I've scheduled her and assessed her and benchmarked her. And I have never not once sat down and said, What do you want, Sophia? James felt something shift in the room. Not the temperature, not the light. Something bigger. The feeling you get when a story turns a corner and you realize that everything before was just the prologue. Then let's go ask her. They went upstairs together. Catherine knocked on Sophia's door. Her knock was different than James's, sharper, more tentative, like she was asking permission to enter a space she'd never earned the right to occupy. Sophia, it's Mom. The door opened slowly. Sophia looked at Catherine, then at James, then back at Catherine. Her expression was wary, guarded, a child bracing for the next disappointment. I want to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the truth even if you think I won't like the answer. Sophia nodded. Catherine knelt down. Her knees hit the floor, and James could see what it cost her, not physically but emotionally. A woman who commanded empires kneeling before a 7-year-old, meeting her where she was. What do you want, Sophia? Not what I want. Not what the tutors want. Not what anyone else wants. What do you want? Sophia looked at her mother for a long time. Her eyes searched Catherine's face, looking for the trap, looking for the angle, looking for the moment when this would all snap back to schedules and assessments and disappointment. She didn't find it. I want to eat breakfast with you. Every morning, not just sometimes. Okay. And I want to draw every day. Okay. And I want James to stay. He's staying. And I want... Sophia stopped. Her lip quivered. She looked at the floor. What, sweetheart, you can tell me? I want you to read to me at night, like you used to, before the nannies. Catherine's composure shattered for the second time that morning. She pulled Sophia into her arms so fast the child gasped. She held her daughter against her chest and pressed her face into Sophia's hair. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. Sophia's arms came up slowly, wrapping around her mother's neck, holding on the same way she'd held on to James that first morning, fierce and desperate and afraid to believe. It's okay, Mom. It's not okay. But it's going to be. I promise you it's going to be. James stepped back. He walked down the hallway, down the stairs, into the kitchen. He stood at the counter and gripped the edge and breathed. His phone buzzed. A text from Emma. How's the complicated thing going? He typed back, getting less complicated. That means it's getting more complicated, doesn't it? He laughed out loud, alone in the kitchen of a mansion that had started to feel less like a fortress and more like a place where broken things were slowly, painfully learning how to mend. Yeah, Em, it does. Catherine kept her promise. She read to Sophia every night for 3 straight months. She started with picture books because that's where they'd left off when Sophia was 4. Neither of them acknowledged that a 7-year-old didn't need picture books. It wasn't about the books. It was about the ritual, about Catherine sitting on the edge of Sophia's bed with her shoes off and her voice soft, turning pages, being present. Some nights Sophia fell asleep before the story ended. Some nights Catherine did. James would find them in the morning, tangled together, the book fallen to the floor, and he'd close the door quietly and let them have it. It wasn't perfect. Catherine still reached for control the way a drowning person reaches for anything solid. There were setbacks. There were mornings when she came downstairs in her blazer with that hard look in her eyes, and James could see the walls rebuilding themselves brick by brick. There were arguments. There were doors closed too hard and silences that lasted hours. But she kept showing up, every morning, every night, and slowly, painfully, something in that house began to change. 4 months into James's time at the Harrington estate, Emma asked him a question he'd been avoiding. Dad, when's this job going to be done? They were in his apartment on Saturday afternoon. Emma was doing homework at the kitchen table, and James was paying bills, actually paying them on time for the first time in years. The Harrington salary had changed everything. New tires on the truck, Emma's field trip fees covered through the end of the year, a savings account with actual money in it. I don't know, Em. Because you've been there every day for 4 months. You leave before I wake up, and sometimes you don't get home until after dinner. I know, Mrs. Patterson watches you and she's fine, but I miss you. The words hit James in a place he wasn't prepared for. He'd been so focused on Sophia, on Catherine, on the Harrington wreckage, that he'd started doing the exact thing he'd warned Catherine about. He was disappearing from his own daughter's life. Em, I'm sorry. You don't have to be sorry. I know you're helping that little girl, and I know the money is important. But you always told me that the people who are right in front of you matter more than the people who are far away. And I'm right in front of you, Dad. James pushed the bills aside. He pulled his chair next to hers and put his arm around her. You're right. You're absolutely right. And starting Monday, things are going to change. You're not going to quit, are you? Because I don't want you to quit. Sophia needs you. I'm not going to quit, but I'm going to set boundaries. I'll be home for dinner every night. I'll be here on weekends. And I'm going to talk to Catherine about bringing you to the house sometimes. You and Sophia should meet. Emma's eyes lit up. Really? Really? Does she like dinosaurs, kid? She's obsessed with dinosaurs. Emma grinned, and James felt the ground steady beneath him. He'd been so busy saving someone else's family that he'd started to drift from his own. That ended now. Monday morning he told Catherine he needed to adjust his hours. Adjust how? They were at the kitchen island. Catherine had taken to eating breakfast there every morning now, even on days when Sophia slept in. She'd started drinking her coffee at the counter instead of in her office. Small changes. Enormous changes. I need to be home by 5:30 every day, no exceptions, and weekends are mine. That's a significant reduction in... She stopped, looked at his face, read it. Your daughter. My daughter. Catherine set down her coffee. Something passed through her expression, recognition, guilt, understanding. She knew exactly what it meant to lose focus on the person who mattered most. 5:30, every day. Catherine paused. And James? She used his first name. Not Mr. Cooper. James. Bring Emma here sometime. I think Sophia would like that. Their eyes met. The moment lingered. There was something in the air between them that hadn't been there before. I will, thank you. Catherine. Just Catherine. On Wednesday afternoon, James brought Emma to the house. Sophia was waiting at the front door, something she never did. She'd asked James 4 times what Emma was like, and whether Emma would think she was weird, and whether she should change into something nicer. Be yourself. Emma doesn't care about clothes. She cares about dinosaurs and being honest and people who are kind. Emma walked in and looked at Sophia. Sophia looked at Emma. 2 girls separated by wealth and circumstance, and everything the world uses to divide people standing 3 feet apart, sizing each other up. Your dad makes really bad pancakes. The worst. He says the Triceratops is his best one. It looks like a potato. Sophia's face broke into the biggest smile James had ever seen from her. That's exactly what it looks like. They disappeared upstairs within 5 minutes. James could hear them talking, then laughing, then talking more. He stood at the bottom of the stairs and listened, and something in his chest that had been clenched tight for 4 months finally released. Helen appeared beside him. 2 girls who both lost something finding each other. That's not an accident, James. Don't get philosophical on me, Helen. Too late. From that day forward, Emma came to the Harrington house twice a week. She and Sophia became inseparable in the way that only children can instantly, completely, without reservation or pretense. They drew together. They built forts. They created elaborate games with rules that made sense only to them. And Emma, who had grown up without a mother, gave Sophia something James couldn't. She gave her a peer, someone her own size who understood what it felt like when the world wasn't quite right, but you kept going anyway. Catherine watched from a distance at first. She'd stand in doorways observing the girls, arms crossed, expression unreadable. But over time, the distance shrank. She started sitting in the room while they played. Then she started asking questions. Then one afternoon, James walked in to find Catherine on the floor, cross-legged, helping Sophia and Emma construct an elaborate dinosaur habitat out of cardboard boxes and markers. She looked up at him with marker on her cheek and an expression of absolute bewilderment, like she'd woken up in someone else's life and couldn't figure out how she'd gotten there. I'm building a Jurassic swamp. I can see that. It needs more green. Everything needs more green. Catherine went back to coloring. Sophia leaned against her mother's shoulder while she drew casual and unconscious, like it was the most natural thing in the world, like she'd always done it, like the 3 years of distance and schedules and 37 strangers had never happened. James took a photo with his phone. He didn't know why. He just felt like the moment needed to be held on to. When he lowered the phone, Catherine was looking at him. Their eyes met. Held. Something silent passed between them. Not words. Didn't need to be. 5 months in, Catherine called James into her office after Sophia was asleep. Her voice on the phone was different, tight controlled in a way that signaled something was wrong. He found her sitting behind her desk with a letter in her hands. My father is sick. James sat down. How sick? Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. His lawyer sent this. She held up the letter. He didn't call. He didn't come to the house. He had his lawyer send a letter because I asked him to stay away, and apparently he's decided to honor that request even while he's dying. Her voice cracked on the last word. Dying. The word hung in the air like smoke. When was he diagnosed? 3 months ago. He's been doing treatment. It's not working. Catherine pressed her fingers to her temples. 3 months, James. He's known for 3 months and he didn't tell me. You told him to stay away. He's my father. I know. He should have told me. You're right. He should have. But he was trying to respect what you asked for. He was trying not to control you. Catherine shoved back from the desk and stood up. She paced to the window and pressed her forehead against the glass. I've wasted so much time being angry, being afraid, building walls. And now he's dying, and I can't get the time back. No, you can't. She turned and looked at him, and the rawness in her face was almost unbearable. Don't do that. Don't just agree with me. Tell me something helpful. Tell me something that makes this okay. I can't make this okay. Your father is dying. That's not okay. Nothing I say is going to change that. Then what do I do? You go see him. I can't. You can. You don't understand. The last time I saw my father was 2 years ago at a lawyer's office. We were fighting over custody arrangements for Sophia. I looked at him across the table, and I told him he was a failure as a father and that I would never let him do to Sophia what he did to me. Those were the last words I said to my father's face, 2 years ago. Then you go see him and say different words. Catherine's hands were shaking. What if it's too late? It's too late when they're gone. It's too late when you're 6 years old on a kitchen floor. It's too late when there are no more mornings left. Your father is alive right now today, and you're standing here asking me what to do instead of getting in your car. Catherine stared at him. Then she grabbed her keys off the desk. Watch Sophia. I always watch Sophia. She was out the door in 30 seconds. James heard her car start, heard the tires on the gravel, heard the gate open and close, then silence. He sat in her office chair and looked at the letter from William's lawyer, Formal Clinical, the kind of letter that reduced a man's life to legal paragraphs and medical terminology. His phone buzzed. Emma. Dad, you okay? You sound weird. He hadn't called her. She just knew. Kids always knew. I'm okay, Em. Something happened at work. I might be late tonight. Is Sophia okay? Sophia's fine. She's asleep. Is her mom okay? James paused. She's getting there. Catherine didn't come home that night or the next morning. James stayed with Sophia, made pancakes, took her through the day. At noon his phone rang. James? Catherine's voice sounded like she'd been crying for 12 hours because she had. I'm here. He looks so old. When did he get so old? He was always this giant, this force. And now he's in a hospital bed and he weighs nothing. He's disappearing. How is he? He cried when he saw me. My father, the man who built a $3 billion company from a hardware store in Cleveland, he cried like a child. He grabbed my hand and he said, I'm sorry, Catherine. I'm sorry for all of it. And what did you say? I said, I know, Dad. I know. And then I climbed into the hospital bed next to him and I held his hand and we sat there for hours, not talking, just sitting together. And James, it was the first time in 30 years that I've been in the same room as my father without wanting to scream or run or fight. That's everything, Catherine. That's all of it. He wants to see Sophia. Then bring her. I'm afraid. I know. What if she's scared? He's in a hospital. There are tubes and machines. And she's not going to see the tubes. She's going to see her grandfather. Kids see people, not equipment. Catherine was quiet for a moment. Will you come with us? Of course. They went the next day. James drove. Catherine sat in the passenger seat, rigid and silent. Sophia was in the back, quiet but not anxious. James had explained to her that her grandfather was sick and that they were going to visit him. Sophia had listened carefully and then asked one question. Will he like me? He already loves you. He's loved you since before you were born. William Harrington was in a private room at Christ Hospital. He was thin, diminished, a fraction of the man who'd built an empire from a single hardware store. But when the door opened and he saw Sophia, something happened in his face that James would never forget. It was like watching the sun come up in a place that had been dark for decades. Every line, every shadow, Every mark that time and illness had left on the old man's face was erased for a single luminous moment by the sight of his granddaughter. "Well," William's voice was weak but warm. "You must be Sophia." Sophia walked to the bed. She looked at her grandfather with those dark, serious eyes. She studied him the way she studied everything carefully, thoroughly, missing nothing. "You're my grandpa." "I am." "James told me you love me." William's eyes filled. "James is right." "Are you sick?" "I am, sweetheart. I'm very sick." Sophia considered this. Then she climbed onto the chair next to his bed, reached over and took his hand. "When my mom was sad, James made her pancakes. Do you like pancakes?" William laughed. It turned into a cough, and the cough turned into something that made Catherine flinch. But when it passed, the old man was smiling. Actually smiling. "I love pancakes. James makes terrible ones. They look like blobs, but they taste okay. Then I'd like to try one." Sophia looked at James. "Can you make Grandpa a pancake?" "I'll make him the best triceratops he's ever seen." "So it'll look like a potato." "A delicious potato." Catherine was standing by the window. James glanced at her. She was watching Sophia hold William's hand, and her expression was something James had never seen on her face before. Not pain, not control, not fear. Something simpler and more profound than any of those things. Gratitude. Pure, uncomplicated gratitude for a moment she'd almost let slip away forever. William looked past Sophia at his daughter. "Catherine." "Dad." "Come here." Catherine crossed the room. She stood beside the bed. William reached for her hand with his free one, the one Sophia wasn't holding. Catherine took it. "I was a terrible father." "Dad, you don't have to." "I was a terrible father. I lost your mother, and I lost myself, and then I lost you. And I spent 30 years trying to buy my way back, instead of just showing up. I should have shown up every day, the way James showed up for Sophia, the way you're showing up now." Catherine squeezed his hand. "I wasn't easy to show up for. You were a child who needed her father. That's the easiest thing in the world to show up for. And I chose work. I chose the company. I chose everything except the one thing that mattered." "I forgive you." Catherine said it simply, without drama, without the weight of 3 decades pressing down on the words. She said it the way you say something you've finally accepted, not because the hurt is gone, but because carrying it has become heavier than letting it go. William closed his eyes. Tears ran down the old man's face. Sophia wiped one away with her small hand. "Don't cry, Grandpa. These are happy tears, sweetheart. That's what James says when he cries at breakfast." James cleared his throat. "I don't cry at breakfast." "You do. You turn around so we can't see, but your shoulders shake." Catherine looked at James. Something passed between them. Not romantic, not complicated, but real. A recognition. Two people who had walked through their own versions of hell and found themselves standing on the other side, scarred and exhausted and somehow still capable of feeling. "Thank you," Catherine mouthed. James nodded. William Harrington lived for 3 more months. He spent most of that time at the estate in a room Catherine set up for him on the 1st floor. Sophia visited him every day after her drawing time. She brought him pictures, dinosaurs, always dinosaurs, and he taped every single one to the wall next to his bed until the wall was covered in a 7-year-old's gallery of Triceratops and T-Rexes and the occasional Lopsidosaurus that James had invented on that first morning. Catherine read to him at night the same way she read to Sophia. She sat on the edge of his bed and turned pages, and neither of them pretended it was anything other than what it was. A daughter and a father running out of time and refusing to waste another second of it. William died on a Tuesday morning in November, peacefully in his sleep with Sophia's drawings on the wall and Catherine's hand in his. The last words he'd said to his daughter the night before were, "You turned out better than I deserved." Catherine didn't fall apart. She didn't retreat. She didn't put on the blazer and the heels and rebuild the walls. She sat with her grief the way James had taught her, not fighting it, not controlling it, just letting it exist. She cried, she raged. She sat on the kitchen floor at 3 in the morning, eating terrible leftover pancakes and telling James stories about her childhood, the good parts, the ones she'd buried along with everything else. He used to carry me on his shoulders before Mom died. He'd carry me through the hardware store and I'd touch the ceiling tiles and feel like I was flying. That's a good memory. I forgot it for 30 years. I forgot that memory. I only remembered the bad ones. The empty house, the boarding school, the lawyers. That's what pain does. It eats the good memories first. But they come back. They come back. The funeral was private. Catherine, Sophia, James, Emma, Helen, and a handful of William's oldest employees. No press, no spectacle. Just people who'd known the man behind the empire saying goodbye. After the service, Catherine pulled James aside. "I've made a decision. About everything." "About what?" "I'm stepping back from the company. Not permanently, but I'm taking a full year to be with Sophia to figure out who I am when I'm not running from something." "That's brave." "It's terrifying." "Same thing." Catherine smiled, a real smile, full, unguarded, reaching her eyes. It was the first time James had seen her smile like that. Not an almost smile, not a flicker, but the real thing. And it transformed her face so completely that she looked like a different person. She looked like the woman she might have been if that kitchen floor hadn't broken her at 6 years old. "I want you to stay. Not as Sophia's caretaker, as—" she struggled with the word, "as a friend. Our friend. Yours and Emma's." "Catherine, you don't need to pay me to be your friend." "I know. That's what makes it real." 6 months later, James was sitting on the back porch of his new apartment, a 2-bedroom clean in a good school district paid for with savings he'd built during his time at the Harrington estate. Emma was inside doing homework. The sun was going down, and his phone rang. "James." Catherine's voice was lighter than he'd ever heard it. "Sophia made me a pancake this morning." "How was it?" "Worse than yours." "Impossible." "It looked like a brontosaurus that had been stepped on." "Artistic license." "She wants to know if you and Emma are still coming for dinner Friday." "We'll be there. Tell Sophia I'm bringing the good pancake mix." She says, and I quote, "Tell James his pancake mix is the same terrible pancake mix and we love it." James laughed. On the other end of the line, Catherine laughed too. And somewhere in the background he could hear Sophia laughing, full and free and unafraid, and the sound was so different from the child he'd met 8 months ago that it didn't seem possible they were the same person. After they hung up, James sat on the porch and watched the light fade. He thought about Sarah. He thought about the years after she died, when he'd been so far away that Emma had to drag him back. He thought about William Harrington dying in a room covered in dinosaur drawings, holding his daughter's hand after 30 years of silence. He thought about Catherine on the kitchen floor telling him about her mother's cold hands. He thought about Sophia whispering, "They all leave." His phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "Dad, stop sitting on the porch being emotional and come help me with math." He smiled. He put the phone in his pocket and went inside. Friday came. James and Emma drove to Indian Hill. The gate opened without the security check. Now Helen had added them to the permanent list months ago. Catherine met them at the door. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, hair down. She looked younger every time James saw her, like someone was slowly rewinding the clock on 3 decades of armor. "They're in the kitchen. Fair warning, they're attempting to make dinner." James and Catherine walked to the kitchen together. Through the doorway they could see Sophia and Emma at the counter, both wearing aprons, too big for them, both covered in flour, both laughing as they tried to roll out pizza dough. "It's not working," Emma said, her hands sticky with dough. "You have to push harder." Sophia demonstrated, pressing down with all her weight. The dough tore. Both girls dissolved into giggles. Catherine leaned against the doorframe next to James, watching, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "I don't know how to do this," she said quietly. "Do what?" "Any of it. Be happy, be normal. Let things be messy without trying to fix them. You're doing it right now. It feels like I'm going to break something. Maybe that's okay. Maybe some things need to break before they can grow. Catherine looked at him. Their eyes met and held. The kitchen sounds faded into background, the girls laughing, something bubbling on the stove, music playing from someone's phone. James, I need to ask you something. Ask. What are we doing? He turned to face her fully. What do you mean? This. Us. Friday dinners. The girls. You showing up every week even though I don't pay you anymore. You being the first person I call when something good happens, or something bad, or something ordinary. What do you want us to be doing, Catherine? She looked at him, vulnerable, hopeful, terrified in a way that had nothing to do with business or control or the walls she'd spent a lifetime building. I don't know. I just know I don't want it to stop. James took a breath. The moment stretched between them like something tangible. Then it won't stop. We'll figure it out as we go. You're okay with not knowing. Catherine, the best things in my life happened when I stopped trying to control them and just showed up. She smiled, that real smile. Is that what you're doing? Just showing up. Every week, for as long as you'll let me. From the kitchen, a crash. Both girls yelped, then laughed harder. We need help, Sophia called. Yeah, this is a disaster, Emma added. Catherine pushed off the doorframe. We should... Yeah. But neither of them moved. They stood there for 3 more seconds looking at each other, both knowing something had shifted, but neither ready to name it yet. Then Catherine's hand brushed his. Just barely. Just enough. And James let his fingers catch hers. Just for a moment. Just enough to say, I'm here. I see you. We'll figure this out. Then they went into the kitchen together. The pizza was terrible. The dough was overworked and tough. The sauce was too sweet. The cheese didn't melt right. They ate every bite. After dinner, while the girls were upstairs playing, James helped Catherine clean the kitchen. They moved around each other with the easy rhythm of people who'd done this before, who'd found a pattern without trying. Catherine was scraping plates. James was loading the dishwasher. My father left something, she said, in his will. James waited. He left the company to me. That was expected. But he also left a letter. Just for me. Helen gave it to me last week. I haven't been able to read it until today. What did it say? Catherine set down the plate she was holding. She pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket, worn like she'd been carrying it for days. He wrote, Catherine, I spent 30 years trying to buy forgiveness. I should have spent 30 seconds asking for it. Don't make my mistake with Sophia. Don't wait. Love is the only thing you can't schedule or control or optimize. You just have to do it. Messily. Imperfectly. Now, I'm sorry I didn't learn this while your mother was alive. I'm sorry I didn't teach it to you when you needed it most. But I see you learning it now. I see you with that little girl. And I see James Cooper, who showed up every day and didn't leave. Hold on to that. Hold on to him. Hold on to what you're building. It's worth more than everything I spent my life making. James stood very still. Catherine folded the letter carefully, put it back in her pocket. He saw it before I did. Saw what? She turned to face him, leaning back against the counter. That you weren't just here for Sophia. That somewhere along the way you started showing up for me, too. James put down the dish he was holding. He dried his hands on a towel, taking his time, giving himself a moment to choose his words carefully. Your father was a smart man. James, but he was wrong about one thing. Catherine's eyebrows went up. What? I didn't start showing up for you somewhere along the way. I started showing up for you the morning I tore up that check. Maybe before that. Maybe the moment I saw Sophia walk into that sitting room and I recognized what you'd both lost. Catherine's breath caught. I'm not good at this, James said. I haven't done this since Sarah. I don't know the rules anymore. I don't know if there are rules. But what I do know is that every Friday I drive across town with my daughter to have dinner with you and yours. And every Friday I don't want to leave. And every Monday I'm thinking about Friday again. James, Catherine stopped, started again. I'm broken in ways I'm still discovering. I'm learning how to be a person again, how to feel things. I don't know if I'm ready for... I'm not asking you to be ready. I'm just telling you I'm here. Same as I've been here for 8 months. Same as I'll be here tomorrow. We don't have to figure out what this is right now. We just have to keep showing up. Catherine crossed the space between them. Not fast, not dramatically, just 2 steps that closed the distance until she was standing right in front of him. You keep saying that. Showing up. Like it's simple. It is simple. It's the hardest simple thing there is. She reached up and touched his face, just her fingertips against his jaw, tentative testing whether this was real. I'm scared. I know. Of messing this up. Of hurting you. Of hurting Sophia if this doesn't. Catherine. His hand came up to cover hers against his face. We're already in it. Both of us. The girls are in it. We've been in it for months. The only question is whether we're brave enough to stop pretending we're not. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she leaned forward and rested her forehead against his chest. Not a kiss, not yet. Just contact. Just permission to be close. James wrapped his arms around her and held on. They stood like that for a while in the kitchen where this whole thing had started with pancakes and tears and the beginning of something neither of them had known they needed. Upstairs footsteps, giggles. The girls were coming down. Catherine stepped back. Her eyes were bright. To be continued. To be continued. The girls came into the kitchen demanding ice cream. James and Catherine looked at each other over Sophia and Emma's heads and smiled small, private, full of promise. The months that followed weren't easy. Catherine was learning how to let someone in, and every instinct she had fought against it. There were nights when she withdrew, when the walls went back up when James would arrive on Friday and find her cold and distant. But he kept showing up, and slowly the walls came back down faster each time. Emma and Sophia became sisters in everything but name. They had sleepovers that alternated between the apartment and the estate. They finished each other's sentences. They fought over markers and made up within minutes. They told each other secrets they didn't tell anyone else. Catherine and James moved carefully, testing each step. A hand held across the table. A kiss goodnight that lingered. Conversations that went late into the night after the girls were asleep. They didn't rush it. They'd both lost too much to take this lightly. 9 months after William's death, Catherine made James an offer. They were sitting on the back deck of the estate. The girls were in the pool teaching each other handstands. Summer in Ohio was heavy and green, the air thick with the promise of thunderstorms. I've been thinking, Catherine said, about what comes next. What comes next with what? With us, with the girls, with everything. She turned to look at him. I want to make this official. Not marriage, not yet. But I want you and Emma to move in. I want us to be a family. Really be one. James had been expecting this conversation eventually, but hearing it still made his heart rate kick up. That's a big step. I know, and I know it's fast, but also it's not fast. We've been doing this for almost a year. The girls already think of each other as sisters, and She stopped, started again. I love you. I don't think I've loved anyone since my mother died. I didn't think I was capable of it anymore, but I love you. And I love Emma, and I want us all under the same roof. I want to wake up every morning and make terrible pancakes with all of you. James looked at her. This woman who'd been so broken when he met her, who'd torn up a $50,000 check and wept on a marble floor, who'd sat with her dying father and forgiven 30 years of absence in a single breath. I love you too, he said. I have for months. Maybe since that first morning when you came down in jeans and tried a triceratops. Catherine laughed. That long. That long. So is that a yes? That's a, let me talk to Emma first. This affects her life as much as mine. She gets a vote. Of course she does. That night James sat Emma down in their apartment. I need to talk to you about something important. Emma looked up from her book. She was 10 now, taller than she'd been a year ago, still wearing Sarah's serious expression, but smiling more often. Is this about you and Catherine? James blinked. How did you? Dad, I'm 10, not blind. You guys look at each other like people in the movies, and she touches your hand a lot, and you get all weird and smiley after Friday dinners." James laughed despite himself. "Okay, yeah, it's about me and Catherine." "Are you getting married?" "Not yet, but she asked if we'd move in, me and you, to the estate, all of us together." Emma's eyes went wide. "Really? Really? But only if you want to. This is your life too, Em. You get to decide." Emma thought for a long moment. "Would I get to have my own room?" "Yeah." "And Sophia would be there all the time?" "She lives there, so yes. And we'd still have our apartment if it didn't work out." James's chest tightened. His daughter was already thinking about exit strategies. She'd learned too young that the people you love can disappear. "We'll always have a place to go, Em. I promise. But I think this will work out. I really do." Emma nodded slowly. Then she looked at him with those eyes that were so much like Sarah's. It hurt. "Do you love her, Dad? For real? For real? Does she make you happy?" "She does." "Then yes, let's do it. Sophia and I have been planning our shared room anyway." James pulled her into a hug. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me. You know that?" "I know. You tell me all the time." They moved in 3 weeks later. Emma and Sophia did in fact share a room. Despite the estate having 9 bedrooms, they insisted on bunks. James kept his apartment for the first 6 months just in case. But he spent every night at the estate, in Catherine's room, in her bed, learning how to be with someone again after years of being alone. It wasn't perfect. Catherine still had nightmares, sometimes waking up gasping, convinced her mother was dying in the next room. James would hold her until she remembered where she was, who she was with, that she was safe. James still had moments when the grief over Sarah would hit him like a truck. Catherine learned to recognize them, the way he'd get quiet, the way his eyes would go distant. She learned to just sit with him until it passed, not trying to fix it, just being there. The girls had their own adjustments. Sophia sometimes tested boundaries in ways she never had before, like she was checking to make sure James wouldn't leave if she misbehaved. Emma sometimes withdrew, missing the simplicity of it being just her and her dad. But they worked through it, together. 1 year after James had first walked into the Harrington estate, Catherine threw a party. Not a big one, just the people who mattered. Helen August, Patricia Margaret, who drove down from Athens, a few of William's old friends, a few of Catherine's colleagues who'd watched her transform over the past year. James stood in the backyard watching Sophia and Emma play on the swing set William had installed before he died. Catherine came up beside him, slipping her hand into his. "What are you thinking about? About how different this is from a year ago. Different good or different bad? Different impossible. If you'd told me last year that I'd be standing here living in this house in love with you, watching our daughters play together, I would have said you were crazy." Catherine leaned her head on his shoulder. "If you'd told me last year that I'd be happy, I would have said the same thing." They stood there in comfortable silence for a while. Then Catherine spoke again, her voice quieter. "I want to tell you something. Something I've never told anyone." James waited. "After my mother died, after those 45 minutes on the kitchen floor, I made myself a promise. I promised that I would never need anyone ever again, that I would be completely self-sufficient, that I would build my life so perfectly that nothing could hurt me. And I kept that promise for 29 years. She turned to look at him. "And then you walked in and tore up a check and told me I was wrong about everything. And you were right. I was wrong. About all of it. Because the thing I learned this year is that needing people isn't weakness. Loving people isn't dangerous. The only thing that's dangerous is being so afraid of loss that you never let yourself have anything worth losing." James pulled her close. "Your father would be proud of you. You know that, right?" "I hope so. I'm trying to be the person he saw at the end. The person he believed I could be." "You already are." From across the yard, Sophia called out, "Dad, Mom, come push us." "Dad." She'd started calling him that 2 months ago, casually, like it was the most natural thing in the world. James looked at Catherine. Ready. For what? To be the parents who push their kids on swings at their own party instead of mingling with guests. Catherine grinned. Absolutely. They walked across the yard together, hand in hand, toward the girls who were already squealing with anticipation. Helen watched from the patio, a glass of wine in her hand, smiling. "You did good, William," she said quietly to the sky. "You did real good at the end." That night, after the guests had gone home and the girls were asleep, James and Catherine sat on the back deck under a sky full of stars. "I've been thinking about something," Catherine said. "What's that?" "About making this permanent. Us, officially." James's heart jumped. "Are you—" "I'm asking you to marry me, James Cooper. I'm asking you to be my husband, Emma's stepfather officially, Sophia's dad in every way that matters. I'm asking you to build a life with me that isn't just showing up every week but showing up every day forever." James didn't answer right away. He just looked at her, this woman who'd been so cold and broken, who'd learned to laugh again, to love again, to let someone in. "On one condition," he finally said. "What?" "We keep making terrible pancakes every Saturday morning, all four of us, no matter how busy we get or how crazy life gets. That's our ritual. That's where this whole thing started." Catherine's eyes filled with tears, happy ones. "Deal. Then yes, yes to all of it. Yes to forever. Yes to terrible pancakes and messy life and fighting and making up and raising these girls together and figuring it out as we go." Catherine kissed him then, under the stars, in the backyard of a house that had once been a fortress and was now a home. Some people spend their whole lives building walls. They build them out of money and schedules and silence and control. And they convince themselves that the walls are keeping them safe when really the walls are keeping them prisoner. And every now and then someone comes along who doesn't try to climb the wall or break it down or go around it. Someone who just stands on the other side and says, "I'm not going anywhere." And they wait, and they show up, and they make terrible pancakes, and they tell the truth even when the truth is the hardest thing anyone has ever heard. And one morning the person behind the wall opens the door, not because the wall fell, because they chose to walk through it. James Cooper was not a therapist. He was not a billionaire. He was not a miracle worker. He was a man who'd lost everything and learned the only lesson that mattered, that the people right in front of you are the only ones who count. And showing up is the bravest thing a person can do. And he never stopped showing up. Not once.